Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashoda Nandana Vratajana Ranjana. Yashoda Nandana Vratajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Charya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Ashtotar Shri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, chapter 18, text 7, which is a prose. Can you chant it, Dravida Prabhu?
I will.
Okay. Okay, thank you. 7, 5, 18, 7.
Harivarshe chapi bhagavan dhṛta-nara-hari-rūpenashte tad-rūpa grahana nimittamutta raptrabhidasye tad-dahitam rūpam mahapurusha gunabhajano mahabhagavato daityadanava kulatirti karanashila charitaha Prahlado vyavadhanananya bhakti yogena sahatadvarsha purushaya rupaste idam choda harati.
Thank you, Dhruva.
Sure.
Should I chant or should we read the synonyms?
Translation.
Okay. Translation. And purport by His Divine Grace. HG Bhakti-vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Shukadeva Goswami continued, My dear king, Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva resides in the tract of land known as Harivarsha. In the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, I shall describe to you how Prahlada Maharaja caused the Lord to assume the form of Nṛsiṁhadeva. Prahlada Maharaja, the topmost devotee of the Lord, is a reservoir of all the good qualities of great personalities. His character and activities have delivered all the fallen members of his demoniac family. Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva is very dear to this exalted personality. Thus, Prahlada Maharaja, along with his servants and all the denizens of Harivarsha, worships Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva by chanting the following mantra. Purport. Jayadeva Gosvāmī, 10 prayers worshipping the incarnation of Lord Krishna, Keśava, contain his name in every stanza. For example, Keśava dhṛta-nara-hari-rūpa, jaya jagad-īśa hare. Keśava dhṛta-mīna-śarīra, jagad-īśa hare. And Keśava dhṛta-vāmana-rūpa, jaya jagad-īśa hare. The word jagad-īśa refers to the proprietor of all the universes. His original form is a two-handed form of Lord Krishna, standing with a flute in his hands and engaged in tending the cows. As stated in Brahma-saṁhitā, Chintamani prakara sadmashu kalpavriksha lakshavrikshu surabir abir palavayantam lakshmi saharsha sahasra shata sambarama Sevyamanam Govinda Mari Purusham Tam Aham Bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems and surrounded by millions of purpose trees. He is always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune. From this verse, we learn that Govinda, or Krishna, is the Adi Purusha, the original person. The Lord has innumerable incarnations, exactly like the innumerable waves of a flowing river, but the original form is Krishna, or Keśava. Shukadeva Goswami refers to Nṛsiṁhadeva because of Prahlada Maharaja. Prahlada Maharaja was put into great distress by his powerful father, the demon Hiraṇyakaśipu. Apparently helpless before him, Prahlada Maharaj called on the Lord, who immediately assumed the gigantic form of Nṛsiṁhadeva, half lion and half man, to kill the gigantic demon. Although Krishna is the original person, when without a second, he assumes different forms just to satisfy his devotees, or to execute a specific purpose. Therefore, Jayadeva Goswami always repeats the name of Keśava, the original personality of Godhead, in his prayers describing the Lord's different incarnations for different purposes. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born darkest in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. So thank you for the warm welcome back to San Diego. Some of you are happy, some of you are sad that I'm back. And it was interesting because we visited Honolulu and then we went to Maui with my spiritual master, His Holiness Badrinarayan Swami Maharaj. And they had a temple in Honolulu. It was very interesting because Hawaii, it seems pretty mystical. For those that have been there, everything is pretty green, luscious. There's always fruit trees, and there's these trees called monkey pod trees. They're everywhere. They're huge. And there's a lot of banyan trees also. And so it was the 50th anniversary of the installation of Sri Sri Panchatattva, the deities in Hawaii. So the devotees there, they rented 2 buses. And the devotees, we went all around Honolulu, and we visited all of the holy places that Srila Prabhupada has either walked on, or the beaches, or where he stayed at, preparing for the opening of the temple there. And what I liked about Honolulu is that at night it rains or it drizzles, because the temple is near a mountain, and then you can see where the clouds are. It hits the mountain, and then it causes rain or drizzles. And it was funny because when Maharaj and I, when we went up the stairs, the guest room was upstairs, and the brahmachari was also upstairs. So Maharaj, he wanted to see the brahmachari ashram. And when he went there, he looked to the left, he looked to the right, and then he said, Prabhupada said, brahmachari means messy. So they had a little mess on the floor. But Maharaj, he closed his door and he went to his guest room. And it was a nice festival. There was a lot of senior devotees, Srila Prabhupada disciples, and I'm thankful and grateful that I've met a lot of nice personalities. There was a devotee that used to stay here, maybe some of you know, Mohan Vilas Prabhu. Yeah. So I had the opportunity to meet him, and then he was also telling me pastimes of the deities here, Maharaj, and the devotees here. So it was nice hearing that. And another funny thing is that since it's like a forest, there were lizards in our room. Lizards. Yeah. But they were harmless. They were, eating the bugs and things like that. And there's another devotee from Denver. His name is Ananta Vijay Krishna Das. And I had the pleasure of doing some service with him. We were cleaning the gutters because it was clogged up with leaves. So the drainage was blocked. So we had the opportunity to clean the gutter. So I was able to do some menial service. And also, just like there's causeless mercy, I was able to do arti for the deities in Hawaii. There was a devotee, his name is Vishvambar Prabhu, and somehow or other he injured his back. So they needed a replacement. And Ananta Prabhu, he said, why don't you do it, Govardhan? And I said, I'm not qualified, I don't know what I'm doing. And then there's another devotee named Nam Kirtan. And so he said, no, I'll guide you. So first I made a small fruit offering with milk. And then I went on the altar and he showed me the steps on how to properly do the arti. So they had a Bhagavad Gita class, and after the Gita class, that was when I did the arti. So it was very nice. That was my first time being on the altar. I was nervous, really nervous. And I was able to meet also another devotee named Sundarananda Prabhu. He was a very nice Kirtaniya. He knows how to cook well. And he was an old temple president there. He's now vice president. So I had a nice time. And when we visited the different places, there's a beach called Waikiki Beach. And the devotees there, they decided to do Harinam. And that's where I was doing book distribution. So the devotees, they were sitting down, they were chanting and dancing. And I was standing up and approaching people. And a lot of the people that I met, they were visitors. They weren't living in Hawaii. So when I asked them, have you heard of stress? They immediately said, yes, that's why I'm here. So people go to Hawaii, they go to different vacation spots to try to get away from stress, from either work, family, things like that. And I met this Mataji, she was from Los Angeles. And when I asked her about stress, and I was presenting the books nicely, so she took a book and then she gave a donation. I didn't even ask for a donation. And she said, I want to thank you for what you're doing. And then she looked around and she said, all of these people, they're actually in anxiety. And I told her exactly. So she gave a donation, and I actually gave her 3 other books. And as we were packing up, there was this couple, they had a little wagon. So I said, I'm going to put a book in there. So I took the book that was distributed. It's called Introduction to Bhagavad Gita. And so I just placed it in their cart, and then we went home. And then so after Honolulu, we visited Maui. There's a nice couple, Balaram Prabhu's godbrother, Balabhadra Prabhu and Gauramani Mataji. They allowed us to stay in their home, so there was a lot of different programs. We visited all the different... so what they want to do is they want to start like a preaching center, and then they want to invite all the nice people there. And I also met some Prabhupada disciples as well. They had a home program, and we celebrated Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva's appearance day as well there. It was nice. Okay. So Srila Prabhupada, he tells the story of he was coming from Vrindavan to Delhi. He saw hundreds and thousands of young people cycling to work. It was maybe about 20 to 25 miles away, and it would take 2 hours to reach. So they would work hard, 8 hours, and they would have to cycle back home another 2 to 3 hours. And then they think that this is life, to work hard, to accumulate money, and then to have a little sense gratification at night. And when we request them, you come here, live peacefully, eat sumptuously, Krishna Prasad, and chant Hare Krishna, they don't want to do that. So then Srila Prabhupada says, just see how unfortunate they are. And then he quotes this verse, Manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya hi upadrutaha. So this is Kali Yuga. Everyone is all bad, unfortunate, and disturbed. And Prahlada Maharaja, he's an example of a pure devotee. A Krishna-conscious person sacrifices everything for Krishna. When his own father, Hiraṇyakaśipu, was torturing Prahlada Maharaja, he depended solely on Krishna. He knew that Krishna would protect him. So there's a nice verse. An intelligent person should strive for education and wealth, as though free from old age and death. But he should perform religious acts as if death has caught him by the hair. So education in Kali Yuga, the students are generally not so interested in studying now. And they cheer when a holiday falls on a school day. You know, I remember being in school, and when there's a holiday and it was a school day, it was like a celebration, you know. I didn't want to go to school. So similarly, in Kali Yuga, they're not interested so much in learning. And consumerism is a result of our attempt to avoid austerity. Everything has now become so convenient, you know, air conditioning, things like that. And the original main purpose of education is to gain wisdom and to develop good character. And Srila Prabhupada would emphasize that education means good culture. It doesn't mean getting a PhD, it doesn't mean getting placards or certificates. And education is now gained for money-making skills. That's the reason why people go to school, is just to make money. It's not to develop good qualities. And sometimes uneducated persons achieve vast wealth by some good fortune, but it does not last long. For a fool and his money are soon parted. And example is in America. Studies have shown that the great majority of those that win money and they become instant multimillionaires by, you know, the lottery, often return to their former financial status within 2 to 5 years. And sometimes they end up even worse than before. When they get this nice wealth, they misuse it, they misspend it. And then so they go back to their original status in life. Because these lucky winners lack the wisdom to handle wealth in a long-term way. Like Balaram Prabhu, he was saying they're kripanas. They don't know how to utilize money properly. So wealth and education go together, but of the two, education is more important. Vidyam artam cha. So there's a story. There was once a man, he approached a saint, and he told the saint, please help me. My mind is always troubled. I'm always hankering after sense pleasure. So the saint, he said, sure, I'll help you. He closed his eyes. And he said, but first, hear this very important instruction. You will die within a week. So finish your business within 2 days and come back. So the man, he was startled at this information. So he went to his family and he told them. He went to his business and he removed himself from all his business. And he started giving in charity. And so he left his family, his home, everything. And so he visited temples, he gave charity, and he studied scripture. And in this way, 2 days have passed very quickly. So then he went back to the saint. And the saint asked him, did you think of sense pleasure while preparing for your death? And the man replied, not at all. I had no time to even think of sense gratification. I used all of my time for pious activities with the hope of achieving a good birth in my next life. I also realized I cannot take my wealth, so I used it for religious purposes. So then the saint, he tricked him. He said, you're not going to die. He said, always remember you may die at any moment, and your mind will not hanker for sense pleasure. The best wealth is knowledge. Why? Because it cannot be stolen, it is priceless and is imperishable. A rich man is always anxious that his wealth may be plundered or embezzled or lost in business or gambling, and that he or his relatives may be held for ransom. Today's rich man can easily become tomorrow's pauper. An example is in the Mahabharata. Yudhishthira Maharaj, who was the emperor, the king of Hastinapur, but then within a day he lost all of his kingdom due to a gambling match, a dice game. And actually they were cheated because Duryodhana, he asked his uncle to play for him, Shakuni. And he wasn't even from Hastinapur, he was from Gandhira? He was from another country or another state. And so this reminds me of a story. There was two brothers, and they left their village to seek fortune. One studied at a gurukul, and the other one, he became an apprentice to a rich merchant. After some years, they decided to go back to their parents to offer what they have learned. On that day, dacoits attacked and robbed all the wealth of the brother who was an apprentice. And the other brother had only books. And so he was left untouched. So knowledge cannot be taken away. It is never burdensome to carry, and it causes no anxiety. Therefore, knowledge is the most stable wealth. And spiritual knowledge is never lost, even after the death of the body. It is a permanent asset. And education is priceless. Anargadvat. No one can estimate the extent or value of one's knowledge. Just like Srila Prabhupada says, a well-dressed fool cannot be identified unless he speaks. But once he speaks, he reveals himself at once. Knowledge is also priceless in the sense that it cannot be purchased like other commodities, and it has to be earned by individual effort. And education is imperishable. Akshat yavat. Worldly riches diminish when distributed. That's why they are hesitant to give in charity. But vidya, or knowledge, however, increases when shared with others. This is especially true with spiritual knowledge. Just like on book distribution. The book distributors, when they distribute books to others, they become happy. Because not only are they pleasing Srila Prabhupada, but their spiritual teacher, the devotees, and Krishna. So when we share knowledge, it increases. Other people, they get to understand who Krishna is, the Vedic literature. And a man enriched with transcendental knowledge can distribute his wealth unlimitedly. Yet his wealth of realization increases. And Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Swalpam apyasya dharmasya. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution. We have nothing to lose when we give this knowledge of Krishna to others. But when one dies, his worldly wealth is left behind, but spiritual knowledge is never lost. It is carried by the subtle body to the next life. In this way, spiritual knowledge is superior to worldly opulence. And I'm sure you guys have heard of this story, but I like to narrate it. There was once a proud king who was attached to worldly opulence, and a saintly person called him. And he noticed the king's strong attachment. Suddenly, he became serious. So the king asked, "Why have you become so serious?" The saint said, "I can foresee that you will die very soon. But don't worry, your pious deeds will promote you to the heavenly sphere. You will enjoy far greater opulence than now. There is one problem. However, your heavenly palace will be infected with mosquitoes. And though you will have a nice mosquito net, you will have a hole in which the mosquitoes will enter and bite you." So then the king, he liked the saint's prediction, except for the mosquito part. So then the king said, "I can mend the net, I can fix it." And then the saint said, "That's all right, except in heaven there are no needles. So when you die, be sure to take a needle with you." And then the king asked, "How can I take a needle with me?" And then the saint replied, "I have no idea. But if you cannot even bring a needle with you, then why are you so proud of your earthly opulence?" So then the king understood, and he became detached to his opulence. And learning makes one humble and makes one qualified. Being qualified, one attains wealth to perform religious acts such as charity and sacrifice, which leads to happiness. Humility is the fruit of a good education. We cannot get knowledge from a bona fide guru without humbly submitting ourselves, making genuine inquiries, and offering submissive service. Even Lord Krishna, he had to go to a gurukul to study, to set an example for us. And questions should not be presented in a challenging spirit or with the intention of testing the caliber of the teacher. In Bhagavad Gita, 4th chapter, text 54, Lord Krishna recommends 3 things. Prayatena, pranipatena, offering obeisances, priparshanena, asking questions, and sevaya, performing service. Unless one serves the spiritual master with the proper attitude, he will be prone to misuse the knowledge he has received, or the true meaning will not appear in his heart. So this attitude is seen in modern students nowadays. They lack respect for the teacher, and some of them even threaten their teachers. There's another devotee in Honolulu, his name is Ashram Maharaj. And he was telling me that he was a substitute teacher, and the kids, they disrespected him. But once they learned that he was a surfer, they gave him respect. So kids nowadays are very disrespectful towards seniors, their elders, even their teachers. And so Srila Prabhupada would also talk about this. A son who is uneducated, of bad character, only causes distress for the father, is like an ugly, useless, blind eye. Beauty and wealth cannot, without good character, are like ornaments on a dead body. Those attracted to a handsome man who has demonic character are like flies attracted to garbage. And a life misspent has no value. A life of self-sacrifice brings fame in this life and the next. And an example of is Srila Prabhupada. The sacrifices that he gave, the hardships and austerities just to start ISKCON. And now everybody knows, almost everybody knows about ISKCON, Hare Krishna. I heard it has now become a household name. It's like on book distribution. They even chant Hare Krishna. Oh, you're a Hare Krishna? And so yes. So they either take a book or they don't, depending on you can say what they've heard about us. And real fame results from the performance of devotional service. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Ramananda Roy says, that person who is reputed to be a devotee of Lord Krishna enjoys the utmost fame and glory. But of course, the devotee is not after fame or reputation. A devotee of the Lord is an asset to his family, for he delivers his ancestors by his devotional service. And after killing Hiraṇyakaśipu, Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva asked, or he wanted to give a boon to Prahlada Maharaja. And Prahlada Maharaja, he requested the deliverance of his father. But the Lord assured him that 21 generations will be delivered. Not only from the father's side, but every 21 generations. And Dimitri Prabhu, he told me that in the last 2 days that you guys had a big celebration. Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva's appearance day and the Sunday feast. So they had to clean the temple room twice. And I was just appreciating it. So Srila Prabhupada, he quotes, "It is better to have one learned son than hundreds of foolish ones. One moon is able to dispel the darkness, not millions of stars. Quality is preferable to quantity. Hundreds of plastic roses cannot compare to one real single rose. And a moon-like pure devotee can deliver unlimited number of fools." Srila Prabhupada wanted to create a society of Brahmins, men of ideal character who could lead the world to spiritual life. He said, if I create one moon, that is sufficient. I don't want many stars. What is the use of having numbers of fools and rascals? If one man understands rightly, he can deliver the whole world. And parents, they rejoice when a son is born, but they do not know the destiny of these sons. If they all turn out to be persons, there's a word, vagabond, like a wanderer, place to place, it is a great disappointment. And if the father is learned and the son is a dunce, feeling ashamed, he dares not to bring his son in the presence of learned men. For one of bad character, a high birth is like a decoration of a dead body. So there's examples of this. Narada Muni and Vidura, they were sons of maidservants, and also Srila Vyasadeva was born of a fisherwoman. Yet they are worshipped because of their excellent character. On the other hand, Hiraṇyakaśipu, Ravana, and Kamsa were born in good dynasties, but are condemned for their bad qualities. So eating, sleeping, mating, and defending are common among animals and humans, but religion is unique among humans, because human beings have the unique ability to speak and inquire about knowledge. And animals, they cannot inquire into the meaning of life. Without cultivating spiritual knowledge, people remain on the animal platform. So misusing the opportunity of human life, people have lived just to satisfy their animalistic desires. This only binds one more rightly to the wheel of repeated birth and death. And thanks to modern technology, men now may accumulate enough karma in this lifetime to provide themselves with millions of animal births in the future. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he taught that the highest goal of human life is prema, or love of God. And prema brings peace in this life and in the next. So I didn't want to go too much into the pastimes of Lord Nṛsiṁhadeva because Maharaj, he's going to be speaking tomorrow. His Holiness Bhakti Sundar Goswami, he's going to be speaking tomorrow. Okay. Is there any questions, comments, reflections?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I just wanted to let you know there is one question pending on the Zoom.
Okay. We have an in-house question by Dimitri.
Thank you, Govardhan. It's nice that you're back. The question about the last thing you said, how social media is given so many opportunities for people to be entangled in karma. Could you please maybe elaborate on that a little bit more and say why?
Yeah. There's a lot of apps now about mingling, you know, hooking up with boys and girls. And so that leads them to performing sinful activities, illicit relationships, things like that. And also apps or, you know, social media about quick, what is it called? Get rich quick schemes, like that. So then they perform, they cheat people, they perform so many immoral acts just to get wealth. Yeah. And, you know, another thing is traveling is actually very, it's hard. On our way back here, it was a 6-hour flight from Honolulu to San Diego. And there were kids behind us. They were kicking the seat. They were yelling and screaming. And the parents, they didn't even try to stop them. They were thinking, oh, my young son is, you know, they sound like sweet talk. But to the other people, they were bothersome, actually. Yeah. So they were yelling. Yeah. And then so, yeah, the social media, they don't teach, and like what Balaram Prabhu was saying, nowadays movies, they don't have any morals. It's just either revenge or, you know, a man lost the woman, and so the whole movie is about getting her back, things like that. And also, even when I was in Hawaii, I was always thinking about the devotees here, about the temple. You know, just like, I mean, I'm not even in Srila Prabhupada's caliber, but Srila Prabhupada, although he was traveling all around the world, he was always thinking of Krishna and Vrindavan. Did I help, Dimitri? Okay, thank you.
Hi, Bol Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Wonderful class. Nice to see you back. I had a couple reflections and a question. It's interesting when we read the Bhagavatam and then we get to the end of a canto, right? Or we get to the end of a chapter and we get this meta line, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports, right? And the purports are Srila Prabhupada kind of imbibing all the commentary that's been made on this great conversation that Shukadev's having with this king. So there was something really interesting that happened in the text that you're reading. It was saying, Sukadev is saying, I'm going to describe this later on in the 7th canto. Right? They're having a conversation, and he's referring to cantos, right? Like, have we seen that before in the Bhagavatam, where he's mentioning, oh, I'm going to do this in this canto? Because it's also, we know it as cantos in a book, right? But it's pretty cool that he's saying, hey, I already know where I'm going. You know, we're right now in the 5th canto, this conversation. In the 7th canto, I'm going to be doing it. Because I was thinking, do they, after every canto, it's like intermission in a play where they're like, all right, you need some water? Are you good, this conversation? All right, we're going to shift into the 6th canto right now, right? Because we're used to that happening outside of the text. But the text itself, he's saying, I mean, what a brilliant conversation. Yeah.
So sorry, unless you want to respond to that.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was the Sanskrit is just saying in later chapters, it just says uttaratra, so it's not saying canto, but it is saying later chapters, and Prabhupada puts it as 7th canto to make it clear to us where it'll be. But
I think also in the Krishna book, when they were describing Krishna's childhood pastimes, Prabhupada mentions the Kurukshetra war. So it was like foretelling Krishna's future.
So he's saying in later chapters. That's the Sanskrit translation. Interesting.
Even
Yeah.
that uttaratra, I don't know if that really, even chapters could also be a loose translation, but at least it's saying later on.
Later on.
Even chapters
Okay.
make it sound like book form, even though it's oral form.
Because that blew my mind. If he's like, when we get to the 7th canto, this conversation, right? He could be like, day 5.5, we're going to get to Nṛsiṁhadeva, right? You said a good devotee, his ancestors. It has an impact on his ancestors, the people who came before him. So can you explain that?
So, Srila Prabhupada used this word putra, and he describes that there's a hellish planet called Put, and then a son that delivers those fathers putra. So Prahlada Maharaja is a good example, and also Dhruva Maharaj. When he was going back, he was worried about his mother. But then the Vishnu Dutas, they assured him, no, your mother's going to go on another airplane. So anyway, maybe Dravida Prabhu has something.
Can explain, very mysterious. I thought about that a lot, and the only thing I came up with, because I don't think Prabhupada explains it, how that works, you know. It's a little easier to understand the previous ancestors, because by Prahlad's thinking of them, he's aware of them, and he's wanting their deliverance. That's in the 7th canto. He asks that, and that Hiraṇyakaśipu will be delivered, and he says, I don't know how many, I forget how many generations, 10, 15 generations forward and back, just because of your being born in there. But one of the things is that you can't really compute or figure or let's say predict the extent of how Krishna's mercy is going to work this way and that way. It doesn't. It's like, well, God has to be fair. I remember when it has to be fair. Well, what's fair? I mean, we think that usually that comes up when people think that there's so much suffering. Why wasn't God, if He's really there, why doesn't He deliver it? We don't know all of the sins that we committed, and think of sins being you're causing suffering to others. So if it's like a prisoner, is complaining about his punishment, but he's forgotten or refused, purposely maybe, all of the crimes he committed and how he's being punished, in recompense. So one of the things is just this idea of like, if you just chant the holy name one time, it relieves all of your karma. You're liberated, especially if you chant it purely. Well, how is that? The mundane conceptions of justice and equality. It's just Krishna's mercy. You're starting on your journey back to Godhead. You're committing and you've done the most important thing. So it's something that you can explain how it happens. But this idea that there's a connection, we have a connection with all the people who came before us in our, and we're a generation, and those who will come after us, if we're, having children and so forth. So there's some kind of subtle connection there. And if there's a wonderful devotee like Prahlad, then it's a blessing for the whole. Prabhupada once said, I heard, that the parents of my devotees, of my disciples, who oftentimes in the old days, they used to, actually do deprogramming, do Chinda's kidnapping, so many things. So there was even from the very beginning, some, wondering what you've taken my son, what's going on? But he said, they'll really appreciate their children's devotion when they die, and they will not have to go to hell, and they'll be delivered, and get a better birth. So it's a very subtle thing that it doesn't compute according to a material calculation.
How favorable is it for us? We have you on the Vyasa Sound and Dravida's back. It's just so nice to be here. Yeah, thank you for this wonderful class and being part of this assembly of Vaishnavas.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, Govardhan Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam. My question is, how come a non-devotee doesn't have good qualities?
Well, Srila Prabhupada says there's 4 pillars that are stopping us from committing sinful acts. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling, and no illicit sex. Because they spoil different things. Just like meat eating, it destroys, compassion. Illicit sex destroys austerity. Gambling, truthfulness, and Yeah. Mercy. Intoxication is cleanliness, or yeah. Oh. I thought it was us too. Okay, sorry. So yeah. So the non-devotees, although they may appear to be, even if they're vegan, even if they're, eat all these organic things, they still don't know how to come to a devotional service. And even an atheist, I forgot who was saying this, but they may be vegan, but they don't believe in God. That's the greatest loss, to believe that there is no Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yeah, and Dravida Prabhu can expand on it.
I'm a little spaced out, but did he say, why is it that non-devotees don't have any good qualities? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, that is my question.
Yeah, that's a verse. This is a verse. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavati kinchana sarvaganas tattva samasate sura harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manonasenata davanto badhi. And it's impossible, if you're not a devotee, to ultimately control the senses and the mind. There's so many verses about even great yogis, and so if they're not devotees, they eventually fall down, right? We have so many examples. So the average person, when they're just simply controlled, the chariot of the mind is taking them here and there and here and there. And so whatever good qualities they may have is soon erased and destroyed by their engaging in sinful or at least sensual activities that, as you described, destroy the good qualities. So there may be some shadow of a good quality that develops, but it's soon swept away by the modes of passion and ignorance that the mind is in. So that's the ultimate answer, I think, to that.
Thank you, Dravida.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. Thank you, Govardhan Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Did you have another question, Vijay Krishna?
Yes, from yesterday about the termination related to Balaram's Prabhu class, and I need to know how to solidify my determination.
Yeah. How to solidify determination. You said that yesterday, didn't you?
So one of the devotees here, Ramapati Prabhu, he said, by being enthusiastic about performing.
It's famously, he's talked about how if you're going to be determined, you got to give up sex life. And he gave Mahatma Gandhi as the example. Yeah. He was so determined to throw out the British, and he said people laughed, because he had this weapon of non-violence, and but because he was determined, because he was 35, and even though he was married and everything, he gave up his sex life. So he said, if you want to be really determined, that's how to do it. That is to give up. And in general, sensual activities, they drain out your determination to do anything important. Even the karmis know that. Is that any sport? Yeah, kickboxing. You know what I mean? In other words, because you have to have your inner strength and and will. It's as strong as possible, and the sex life and other sensual activities just drain that out, and you become, very weak. So that's one prescription.
Yes, Ravindra Prabhu, thank you very much.
Balaram Prabhu has something to add.
Yeah, about this idea of give up sex life, and this helps with the determination, and Prabhupada gives Mahatma Gandhi as an example. Yeah, it's interesting because you could say that Mahatma Gandhi and many people in India, even now, of course, as we always like to say when we say that, it's degrading. But they're not, even though they're married and this and that, they're not really, a number of them we could say, they're pious, religious householders, and it's not like they're engaged in just some, a bunch of, gross sex life or something like people are in outcast situations, right? So it's interesting, like Mahatma Gandhi, you think, oh, was he really like a, sensual person or something? I mean, he was, of course, we don't really know much, but a lot of people like him aren't really engaged grossly, like, say, those in the outcast would be. So when Srila Prabhupada says, oh, you give up sex life, it seems that he's also referring to, the subtle, because I mean, I don't exactly know what Mahatma Gandhi did. Did he leave his wife? No. At that time, he didn't leave.
He had his wife. Right?
He had his wife. So does that mean he was just like giving up the subtle niceties? Because there's a bunch of subtle sex also. Anyways, but because, for example, someone could say, well, like the principle of sannyas. Okay, you take sannyas and you leave your wife. Okay, so you're giving up sex life, but you could say if you're living a religious householder life, you shouldn't really be engaged in sex life as people think of it, but it's more the subtle stuff. And then you give it up, and then you're determined you don't have any other engagement besides just preaching. So anyways, I'm just saying as like a comment. But all right. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Bwana. Okay, thank you for your time and attention. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.